walking around half naked, and the condoms in the alley. You got the whole thing. And prostitution is a regional business. It runs from Richmond to Montreal, and it starts in March or April. If a city clamps down on it, they will go to the city of least resistance. Whatever happened this year, we didn't, and then now is all over the streets. So arresting prostitutes is of no value. They will come right back out or will be replaced immediately. So you really have to go again at the supply side, and that's the job.
You raised your 1998 phrase again.
Absolutely.
It never gets old. Honey, I lost
Honey,
the
I lost the car,
because
yeah.
you're planning to tell us what that means.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be humorous, because it's not a humorous business here, but it's humorous in the sense it's catchy. And so the news media, which wouldn't report on a very dry story, would report on something like that because it's funny.
Is that a criticism of the
They
media?
can impound, the police can
and-
impound cars that they have a
Sure.
probable cause to believe in the furtherance of a
Exactly. So
prostitution.
if you're a John and you drive in the district and you want to pick up a prostitute, have to be an undercover agent, we can take your car and you can come back and get it the next day.
Okay, but why are the police spending taxpayer dollars on internet stings involving, somebody who goes on the internet and contacts a prostitute and meets that individual in a hotel where two consenting adults are doing things that adults can consent to do?
Well, I don't agree with that characterization of two consenting adults. I'm sure that the woman involved in this could be a child, could be a teenager.
Then go after the traffickers.
Yeah. And frankly, but going after the traffickers is very difficult. It's like going after the pimps. When we try to go after the pimps, you have to have a girl who's willing to testify against them. They're usually petrified to do that. So we've found that the better way is to go after the Johns. On the internet, again, it's a harder thing, but the whole sex trafficking thing is abhorring. And when you see some of the people who are caught up in this, that's why we do it. But again, my legislation isn't aimed at that. What I'm trying to do is get this stuff off of the streets of Washington, out of the neighborhood, get it up to another city. Go to Baltimore, go to Montreal, go someplace else. Just don't do it here.
Are you
The mayors of those cities are not listening to us right now.
Since you've been trying to get the police to actually impound the cars, because they weren't impounding the cars, I've seen all these press releases about how many people have been arrested in this current crackdown, whatever it's called, but I haven't seen any list of cars being confiscated.
Yeah, they haven't seized any cars, and
that would embarrass that goes to the heart of your embarrassment,
exactly.
John.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping to get the chief and some others and go out and seize a couple of cars in the next couple of weeks. And it would be great to get some of the news media to come with us. And again, that's the whole thing. Publicize it. If you come into the district, you're likely to lose your car. Go somewhere else and do it. Go to Alexandria, across the river, down on Route 1 or something, and then you'll have a better shot.
No, they're listening over.
That's where most of the people are coming from. That's why you want to keep them over there.
Put on your headphones, please, because Zach in the U Street area of Washington is on the air. Zach, go ahead, please.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Kojo. I love your show.
Thank you.
So, just a quick question for your guest, City Councilman. I'm a nurse at Washington Hospital Center here, and I understand that there's an ongoing debate about the nurse-to-patient ratios in D.C. I just wonder where your guest stands on nurse-to-patient ratios, and if it were to come before him, how and why he would vote that way.
I should explain that DC nurses in June were rallying support for a council bill that would reduce the number of patients nurses can care for at a time. Area RN say the Patient Protection Act is necessary to ensure they're not overexerting themselves at the cost of good patient care. The bill was introduced by Council Chair Phil Mendelson. It would set strict limits on nurse-to-patient ratios and provide framework for additional staffing based on individual patient needs.
Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with this issue, and I'll give you my answer first. I would wait to give that answer until the bill actually shows up before us for a vote, because it can change between now and then. I am sympathetic to the nurses. I think they are in a situation where they are being taxed in the sense of putting a lot of work, time, but the hospitals, of course, do have their story as well as to how this could be financially very difficult for them to absorb. So again, if this actually ever gets to us, it's something I would want to sit down with both the Nurse Association and the hospitals and see if we can find some middle ground here.
What's the competency of the council to decide how many nurses there should be? Is there some international organization that says there ought to be X number of nurses for X number of patients?
Well, I think the Nurses Association has a lot of data on that, but then so do the hospitals. So again, it would be the council would be put in a situation of having to make a determination of who's right and who's wrong. But again, I've done that in so many situations. I just did it today with an economic development project. Get everybody in the office and figure out where we are and how do we go forward.
Zach, thank you very much for your call. In case you're just joining us, we're talking with Councilmember Jack Evans. He is the Ward 2 council member of the district. Are you still chair of the Finance Committee?
I am. I'm still chair of the
How
Finance
long have
Committee.
you been chair of the Finance
Since
Committee?
1999.
He's
So
been
it's
chair
now
of the
16
Finance
years.
Committee for 16 years.
Can I go back to housing? I jumped on you before you opened up the crime lake. May I go back to housing for just a moment? Because I think 4th and K is in your ward, isn't it? The Museum Square.
Yeah.
One of the big issues in the city is housing, whether it's for low income or even moderate income people. But Museum Square has particularly been the focus of various protests. It's where hundreds of many Chinese people live. It's one of the largest concentrations of Chinese people in the city. The plan is to tear this building down. Hundreds of people would lose their rental apartments. What do you think about that? There's been a lot of discussion about that, a lot of protests at Bus Boys and Poets and all kinds of groups.
But the ideal situation would be to help the individuals living there to buy the building, and so I think that's part of what
The developer offered $250 million.
Yeah, and so that is the ideal situation that is problematic right now. And I have been to the building, and the building is in serious need of repair as well. That was in bad shape a long time ago, and it's not a long time ago anymore. So the idea is, number one, can we find a place for the individuals who are living there to live in the city? We are building a number of units of affordable housing now in the downtown area. There's over at Florida Avenue and 9th Street, etc. So can we relocate the people from the building into units that are close by? You don't want to force people, particularly in that population you're talking about, are older people who've been in that neighborhood a long time. And to force them to move out of that neighborhood, I think, would be a disservice. So what I would like to do is either, number one, if we can keep them in the building, if not, try and find some affordable units that are close by.
The big issue in the city is housing. I think the Post had a story today about it, but I've written about it a couple of times in recent months. A lot of developers or property owners are giving up their Section 8 with contracts with the federal government to provide subsidized housing.
Right.
Anita Bonds told me there's like 40 different properties that have these subsidized housing. Most of them are going to give them up. What happens to all the poor people who live there?
And again, what we're trying to do, we've just put an additional $100 million on top of the $170 million in the Housing Protection Trust Fund to use to partner with the nonprofits to build more affordable housing. There is no way to be realistic that we are going to be able to catch up and keep up with the demand. And I think you're going to find a situation, even though we construct a lot of affordable housing, that many people are just not going to be able to stay in the downtown, in the neighborhoods, and may have to move out to the suburban jurisdictions. I have learned this in my 25 years on the council. The government can do a lot and so much. In the seniors, if you own a house, you don't pay property taxes. You will never lose your house no matter what you do. You can do as much as you can, but market forces are enormous. And when market forces roll towards you, which they are doing, and things become more and more expensive, it becomes very difficult to keep people. But we are doing everything we can in the city to construct as much affordable housing and keep people here that we can.
We got a tweet from Max Marshall who says, any chance that DC tries to win the U.S. Olympic bid with Boston backing out? Before you respond, I would like to give you a response that we seem to already have from John in Chevy Chase, Maryland. John, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Coach O.
You're welcome.
Don't believe that Washington, D.C. has the wherewithal politically, financially, patriotically, to host a Summer Olympic Games.
Patriotically, wait a minute. What does that mean?
That means that the support from residents and business people for the concept would not be strong enough.
Well, that's not exactly an indication of patriotism or lack thereof, but he does strike a very important point, Jack Evans, which seems to be that there seems to be a groundswell of opinion all over the country, maybe in some cases all over the world, against financing these major sporting events.
Yeah. Where the district is right now is, as you know, Boston dropped out.
Yep.
The USOC has 44 days. It's less than that now.
That's
It's looking more like LA than ever.
Yeah, and the only two choices now are LA and DC. San Francisco is unable to do that. If my sense is correct, they're looking very much at LA. They did contact USOC did contact Ted Leonsis and Russ Ramsey to indicate that
those are the two chairmen of the
to the
local
chair,
level.
yeah. And their position, my position, the mayor's position is this: if they want the District of Columbia, we're interested, but we're not going to compete with LA. I mean, if you want to, we went down that road once. I think the process was fixed. I think the selection of Boston was ridiculous. I think everybody agrees with that. So USOC can do what they want to do. If they want to go with LA, fine. If they're interested in us, we'll be glad to talk.
Let's be
If
clear,
they're
though.
interested in us, we'll be glad to talk to them. How about that groundswell of opinion I was talking about? What is your political sense of whether there would be support for it in the Washington region at this point?
I think there would be support, and you're talking to the guy. There's always a groundswell of support from the naysayers. The baseball stadium had the groundswell support against it, as did the Verizon Center, as did the convention center, and there will always be the naysayers who say, you know, the sky is falling, the earth is flat. But can we put on an Olympics in this region that doesn't cost the city, that economically would work? Yeah, I believe we could do that.
Now, let's be clear about this, because when the district can't do it, but as I understand it, the bid is Maryland, Virginia, and DC all financially in it together.
Yes.
It's not that the city would fund it.
Correct. And it's not the city in Maryland, Virginia would fund it. It's a privately funded. And you have two very smart guys in charge of this thing. And so now the city would have a stake in the game, because at the end of the day, our plan would produce facilities, the RFK Stadium being the most noticeable one, that can be used in the future. This isn't Beijing, where the country's going to lose its mind and build all these crazy things and nothing gets used, or Sochi, or this is Los Angeles. This is Atlanta.
Let me speak on behalf of the naysaying flat earth crowd.
Flat
They will
earthers.
say, here you were just saying that we have a problem providing affordable housing for people, but somehow we're going to be able to find gazillions of dollars to stage the Olympics.
So that's the private sector being involved. And again, it's also constructing facilities that can be used in the future. Again, you can deal with both. And if you followed the philosophy of we have no money to do anything, you wouldn't have built a baseball stadium, which has proved to be one of the most successful sporting projects ever done in the country.
It's not either or.
It's not either or, and it never is.
Before the council adjourned for its summer recess, 2 pieces of ethics reform legislation were introduced. Can you tell us about the issues that need to be addressed in the proposed legislation?
Well, these were introduced, one by the chairman, and I can't remember who introduced the
Chairman
other.
And David Grasso.
David Grosser, yeah. And the council has, over the last 4 years, because of the problems that several of our members got involved in, tried to increase the ethics disclosures by members. What Mendelssohn's does, I believe, is we file once a year about our finances, and this would require us to file twice a year.
You file every month of May, I think.
I think that's what it is. And then Grasso's, I can't remember what his did, but again, what it does is ask the council members, to disclose more and more information.
Which is what Tom Sherwood is all about. Transparency.
Why not disclose lots? And if you disclose everything, people can judge whether you're doing things correctly or not.
Yeah. My only contention with this, and I say this publicly in my colleagues, I don't want to put us in a gotcha situation. Right now, I'll give you one of the things. Every time I attend an event where a dinner is served or something like that, I have to disclose that. And we bend over backwards to try to do it, but there'll probably be one we miss. And that's the gotcha situation. It's really important that you know that I attended the Board of Trade dinner and didn't eat the dinner because it wasn't very good, but somehow I have to attribute that for $100 or something. And I think the disclosure in many ways has
become picayune.
Yes, and it's a little overreaching. But having said that, we're going to do it because the public is angry that many of my colleagues got in trouble.
Well, certainly we have some bad actors in the council in the past, but it just seems to me to be simple with digital record keeping now to keep track of what you do. I mean, look at the cab drivers have to keep track of every fare they have. I mean, why not you just keep track of every thing you do publicly?
We try to anyway, yeah, and disclose it. And but again, the problem with that, Tom, is the press is not interested in disclosure, they're interested in finding something they can write
Yes.
about.
We want to know the things you don't write down. Exactly.
Or the things you
That
do.
should
and-
be an impetus to write down everything.
Yeah, and be critical of what's out there. But having said that, I recognize the environment we're in, and so whatever the requirements are, we're going to comply with them.
Here we go to John in Washington, D.C. Jack Evans, I think John wants to bring up the old red light district routine. John, you're on the
okay,
air.
John.
John, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
All
Yes,
right.
hi. Thanks for taking my call. And I have a practical solution to to the prostitution issue that was discussed. It seems as if the complaint from the neighborhood people was that we got people parading around, halfly dressed and so forth, condoms being thrown around on the ground in our neighborhood. Why can't you just do something like have like a red light district or a combat zone, I think they used to call it in Baltimore, off in an area that's, away from any neighborhood or family situation and so forth, and just allow people to come there and do what what they want to do. And that way you wouldn't have to deal with
Unfortunately,
all of
downtown 14th Street has been redeveloped, and therefore,
Where in this? Well,
It doesn't exist in our
where
city.
does the
that's
caller
problem.
live? May I ask where the caller lives?
I live in the Petworth area.
Well, there are plenty of little neighborhoods in Petworth. We could pick one in your neighborhood.
No, I'm talking about.
There's industrial areas. There's still some
I
place
think
there that
the
the
point that
millennials
both-
haven't bought.
I think the point that both Tom and Jack Evans are making is, where would you identify in the District of Columbia such a place?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we're a 62 square mile area. We don't have any place.
We're not going
left.
across the Anacostia River for sure. Or
No,
something
no.
like
And
that.
even when you to the caller's question, when we were trying to identify areas to grow marijuana, I
Right.
mean, there wasn't an area in the city. Ward 5, was listed. Oh my God, everybody went crazy. So that didn't happen. When we moved the 3 or 4 strip clubs from the baseball stadium district, there was no place in the city that would allow them to come. And so it's very unlikely there's a place
John,
in
I'm
the
afraid
city.
there's going to have to be a different kind of arrangement
Yeah.
for other Johns to go
Yeah.
to. But
It,
thank you
it
very much
reminds
for
me
your
though,
call.
anybody watched The Wire when they set up something called Amsterdam, where for
We
the
just
drug
got a
dealing.
note about that from
Yeah.
our producers.
Oh yeah.
How
and,
about Amsterdam? Like The Wire?
Amsterdam? Well, there you go. If you ever watched the show, but that tanked as well. If you watched the show, it didn't work out so well.
There's a lawsuit over the redevelopment plan of the Southwest Waterfront in D.C. Tenants at the adjacent Marine Avenue Fish Market, specifically Captain White Seafood City and Saltwater Seafood. And that's Fish Markets, of course, is the oldest in the country. They say they're being forced out. Do you have any idea what's going on?
Specifically on this lawsuit, I don't, but I know the issue quite well because I used to represent that area
Yes.
back in the day. That was part of Ward 2. And I've dealt with the members of the fish market. They are congressionally allowed to be there. And it is unlikely they will be forced out because there are Congress members who live on the Southwest Waterfront, and they defend the fish market in its current state. And I, having dealt with this once before, see no logical reason that that's going to change. Now, having said that, the developers of the Southwest Waterfront would like to upgrade the fish market. And therein lies the problem, whether the current tenants would be interested in being upgraded. When I dealt with this issue 10 to 15 years ago, they were not. They were happy the way things were. And I suspect if they keep that mindset, Congress will protect them.
Can I disclose that, I live in that neighborhood?
Yes, you do.
So, but the Monty
Have you
Hoffman,
been monitoring this situation?
I monitor everything. Monty Hoffman, the developer, says that not only does he want to bring sanitation and other things to bring it up to health code
Right.
speed, he also wants to build back a building that used to be there that's similar to what Eastern Market is.
Mhm.
So there'll be additional like fresh foods and things that can be
Yes.
bought there, and also that you can eat food there on the new waterfront. But wouldn't that be good for those business guys if they got to buy into that?
This is
Are they-
exactly the 15-year ago issue. Building the building.
So we're going back with all these issues.
I've been here. I did this, and I got calls from senators and congressmen, and let it alone. And frankly, I believe it's federal land or something. So he can't even do it if he wanted to do it. But I'm happy to revisit the issue. Sometimes you go around on these things.
We're running out of time quickly, but here is Greg in Washington, D.C. on a separate issue. Greg, your turn.
Hey, Kojo, I love your show, man.
Thanks, Greg.
I really do. But Congressman Jack Evans, you're dropping the ball. You dropped the ball, and you continue to drop the ball even after 25 years. I'm really disappointed in your job, because look at Second and D. You have drug people all over the place. You don't care about that. There are no police over at Second and D.
I thought you were calling about the minimum wage, Greg.
Yeah, but I know, Kojo, but then you started talking about drugs, so I'm going to talk about this.
Well, we don't have a lot of time left. Let me try to limit it to the minimum wage.
Congressman,
Well, you promoted him, but that's okay.
Councilman is dropping the ball because he doesn't care that they're just killing themselves. But there's stabbings over there.
Okay.
Stabbing the other day.
And I think that we're really running out of time.
It's in Ward 6, but that's all right.
There's a move
Down by the shelter.
on the ballot to have a $15 minimum wage.
Yes.
Your thoughts as a
I believe it will pass, and I believe the district will figure out a way to implement the $15 minimum wage. But let me just say two concerns I have. Number one, if it's only in the district and not Maryland and Virginia, it puts us at an enormously competitive advantage. And so we're going to have to work with that. And number two, when you do set a minimum wage of $15, there are automatic contracts in place that if I'm earning $16, now I'm earning $21. And so how is this going to adversely affect the business community? So we have to look at all those issues.
it'd help if the feds would raise the federal minimum wage
But they
from
won't.
$7.25 to $12.
Yeah. But our we're not Wyoming or something. We're a city that's sandwiched between two big jurisdictions who are always trying to raid our businesses. So that's the only concern I have. Not that people shouldn't earn $15, but how does it work versus Maryland and Virginia?
Jack Evans is the Ward 2 council
You're
member
making
for the
me go?
district and the chairman of the... Tom, don't ask him any more questions, please. It's difficult enough getting him out of here as it is.
I booked the whole hour. What am I
you
supposed to
did
do?
Got half the hour. Thank you so much for
They
joining
need an
us.
injection seat.
Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's a reporter at
When you get me
NBC4
back,
and
you
a
have to
columnist for
ask.
the
You have
You have to ask.
You also have to leave
Coming up.
politely.
Coming up, Joseline Pena-Melnick is a Democratic Maryland state delegate. She is a candidate for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. She will be joining us shortly. But Tom Sherwood, the governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, is laying claim, or says Virginia should be laying claim to the reputation for crabs in this area. He said because all of these crabs are spawned in Virginia. And that, according to PolitiFact, which checked it out, turns out to be true, that most of the crabs are born in Virginia. However, they end up in Maryland.
What does he want to do about it?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Why did he even bring it up?
You know, he does like
Bragging rights.
He does like to claim credit for lots of things. Let's just give him that one and move on.
Okay, I thought Larry Hogan had an excellent response to that. The governor of Maryland, he said, like most Virginians with any sense,
They moved to
the crabs
Maryland.
moved to Maryland. And speaking of Maryland, joining us in studio is the aforementioned Joseline Pena-Melnick. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, you did very well.
She's
Thank
a
you.
Democratic Maryland state delegate representing District 21, which includes Anne Arundel and Prince George's County, and she's a candidate for Maryland's 4th district. Crabs, Virginia, or Maryland? Which one?
Maryland.
Do you even like them?
What can I expect you to say?
I
You're
do
from
like
Maryland.
You do. I don't like all the breaking them
Well,
apart.
I don't like the
I
messy
love
part of it, but I
crabs.
love eating
I love
them.
the messy part too. If you have questions or comments for the delegate, call us at 800-433-8850. You can go to our website, kojoshow.org. Take a look at her on our live video stream. Send us a tweet at Kojo Show or email to kojo@wamu.org. Closing of the Baltimore Detention Center by Governor Larry Hogan. Apparently, it was an arbitrary move on his part. There has been some objection for not being consulted from some representatives of districts in Baltimore, but it seems to a lot of people that this was a no-brainer.
It's a hellhole, and so I've heard the complaint that he should have negotiated or talked with the representatives or the delegates or whomever, but what would have been the response? I've heard all the complaints that he didn't consult, but I haven't heard, well, if he had talked to me, we would have done X. Well, so he's closing it. 750 inmates. Is it true they're all pre-trial people there? That's what one of the couple of stories.
I'm not sure they're all pre-trial people there, because there are people who have been there for a long time. They must have been waiting a long time for their trial, one long enough to have 3 or 4 children with guards who were
right. I mean,
at that
the history
facility.
there is horrible. It's just the daily living conditions are terrible. And the state, Hogan noted, will save $10 or $15 million by moving these people they call them inmates, but I guess that's what they are, to other locations. But it seems to me like a smart thing to do, the governor did.
How do you feel about it, Joseline Pena-Melnick?
Thank you very much. I really feel that while there are problems, at the prison, at the jail, I think that you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. And he just came in. He's a
I
new.
think the inmates did that.
Well, I tell you, I think that he is a new governor and he needs to work with a majority Democratic legislature. It did not, and it was not going to cost him anything to inform the representatives and the stakeholders in the area. I'm not saying that they had to come up with a plan. I'm saying you give respect and you don't make a unilateral decision like that without involving the people that have been around longer
He's
than
the
you.
executive of the state.
It does not matter. You still have to communicate. You cannot work alone, especially a man like him that came in saying that he will have and work with both Democrats, okay, and Republican bipartisanship. And that does not show here. When you look at the workers, the inmates, the facility, what is the plan? That has not been discussed. There are unions involved. There are many stakeholders. It would not have taken much of him to take a second, make a phone call, convene a meeting, and present his plan. At the end, you got it. He's the executive of the state, of the executive. He can make the decision.
It's a state facility.
It does not matter. You still communicate because they're legislators that represent that area.
How about the politics here? If it's an overwhelmingly popular decision, can't it end up that the representatives are the ones who look as if they're blocking this because they're objecting to the way in which it was done?
No, I think that people would understand that if he had taken a minute to talk to them, the legislative could embrace it. It shows good bipartisanship. And in moving forward, he will have an easier time working with them.
You're in your third term as a state delegate. You've decided to run for Maryland's 4th Congressional District, representing portions of Prince George's County and Anne Arundel, which your current district also includes Prince George's and Anne Arundel, correct?
That is correct.
It's a seat being vacated by Donna Edwards, who's running for Barbara Mikulski's Senate seat. Why did you decide to run? What issues are at the top of your agenda?
Well, Koya, I decided to run. I have been a delegate now for 9 years. Prior to that, I was a councilwoman in College Park. I have been representing, I'm the only one of everyone that's running that have represented both Prince George's County and Anne Arundel County. I have worked for 9 years closely with both governments. Every Friday morning, I sit in both delegations. I have voted on every policy, every bill that has affected both counties for the last 9 years. I decided to run because for me, it's about service. Being a representative, I'm well known in a very humble way for giving great constituency service, and that is what I plan to do. The issues of education, health, transportation, infrastructure, everyone can discuss them, but people want to know that you make government work and that you will be there for them. And I'm known for that. In the last 9 years, Koyo, we have helped many people that have, were going to lose their homes. We were able to make calls for them, help them through the modification process. I have helped people get health insurance as well, help kids get into college, whether I help them do the application, right, or write a letter of reference. It is about service, and that is what I'm known for.
What you are saying essentially is that the difference between you and all of your competitors in this race, and we don't know who they all will be as yet, is that that you are a doer and they may be just sayers.
That is correct. I have a solid record. And I have also, I'm sitting here and I have passed more than 50 bills, okay? More than 50 bills that are well known. Like, for example, the bill that requires the inmates be counted at their home address rather than the prison where they're held when you do, every 10 years, right, the census. Because that district where these prisons are the ones that are going to benefit. And when you look at the one man, one vote rule, it violates that. I passed bills that require that you have to have digitized medical record in the state of Maryland. So anyone can put in a bill. I'm known for working my bills, getting them through because as I said, and I suggested to the governor, I'm suggesting to you that he could have sat down. I'm a convener. I sit people down. I try to find solutions. But more important than that, I am a doer, and I do give good services to my constituents.
You spoke of the bill to count inmates where they live, not where they're incarcerated. Some of the complaints I've heard is that you don't even live in the district in which you're running to be a representative in Congress, that you don't live in the district.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. First of all, Maryland law does not require you to live in the
I know
district.
It doesn't require it.
And most importantly, the district I represent, the 21st district, has both the 4th and the 5th in its district.
What is that, 3 precincts or something? How
And
many
no,
are-
16 precincts.
16?
Yes.
Okay.
And then let me just tell you also, in addition to that, one of my colleagues, one of my delegates lives in the 4th. I can walk to the 4th. That is crazy gerrymandering for you. But I can sit here to tell you that I know the district more than any of the people running, because I have represented both Prince George's and Anne Arundel County for the last 9 years. I know it quite well. I live in there. I represent, for example, Laurel for the last 9 years. 10 of those polls between Laurel and Beltsville have been in the 21st, in Anne Arundel County as well. No one else can say that.
What about Anthony Brown, who is going to run? He represented the whole state, represented
Former
that part.
Lieutenant Governor,
Former
you're
Lieutenant
also running
Governor.
against the
What is your
former.
thoughts about him running?
Well, that is his right. Anyone can write. However, he hasn't represented the Prince George's and Anne Arundel like I have. I literally have spoken with my constituents. Last year, I held 55 meetings. Okay, I attended 54 of them in my district. I go to people's home. I go to our nursing home. I am hands-on, and I doubt it highly that our lieutenant governor does that.
For those of our listeners who may not know a lot about you at this point, you came to the U.S. from the Dominican Republic as a child. You studied law, came to this region to work as an assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. What led you into politics?
It's funny. Actually, you're right. I came here when I was 8 years old, did not know English, came with my mom, who did not even study to the 3rd grade, okay? But she would say education is important. And I got into politics because I became a community activist while I was living in College Park after working at the U.S. Attorney's Office and taking a break to have my kids. I have a set of twins that are 15. Today is their birthday. Happy birthday, Alejandra and Caterina.
Hey, happy birthday, Alejandra and
A lot
Catalina.
of birthdays going around.
And they turned 15, and we have a son who's 16. I stayed home, and I became an organizer where the University of Maryland proposed a plan to build a private road that they call the Connector. They will basically bypass the city of College Park. And I organized the community. 100 of us, went up to Annapolis. We gave testimony against it, and that's how I started. And
Prior to that, you had given no thought to being in politics at all?
Absolutely not, Koyo. Absolutely not. But I wanted to be a voice for the community, and I wanted to fight. And when I decided to run for the city council, after being there 3 years, this position of state delegate became available. There was a woman, Pauline Menace, who had been there 30-something years, and she retired. I asked to run with a ticket. They said no. So I ran by myself against 2 tickets. There were 9 of us running, and I organized the community. I had the support, which I'm very grateful, of the community, and I won. I came in 2nd out of 9 for
So in
the
case you're
position.
just joining us, this is Joseline Pena-Melnick. She is a Democratic Maryland state delegate. She's a candidate for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. If you have questions or comments for her, you can call 800-433-8850.
I spoke to someone very involved in Maryland politics this morning and this person said to me, "You're a rising star in the state."
Thank you. I feel very honored and very humble. Thank you.
But you're not very well known outside of your specific district. And so you're going to run it against Glenn Ivey, the former lieutenant governor. How are you going to separate yourself out in the race where it requires money and all the time?
Well, I already have $194,000 cash on hand. Okay.
All raised.
All raised.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my the money, if you look at, for example, Glenn Ivey's money, his money has come about $170,000 from out of state. Mine is mostly from Maryland, and a lot of the voters in the district. I have an office that is already open, and I have had the office open since June 1st. And I have been doing phone banking, hitting the street. If you follow me on Facebook, you'll see how active we are all the way from South County to, Pasadena, Suburna Park. And no one's going to work harder than I will. And I have a lot of volunteers, people that believe in me and are giving it their all, just like I am. And I think I have a solid record that when people meet me, they will be able to know what motivates me and that I will service them well.
Is there any forum coming up soon, or is it too early for the forums for the candidates to get together?
Not yet. I have not. I know that we expect some in the fall.
You have already picked up some endorsements from fellow state legislators, both Latino and non-Latino, as well as Gustavo Torres, Executive Director of CASA of Maryland, an immigrant rights organization. The Latino population in the region, in particular Prince George's, has doubled over the past decade or so. You became chair of the new Latino caucus in the General Assembly. You've worked to advance Latinos in elected office. You get to have a twofer because you're also a member of the Assembly's Black Caucus.
That's right. I'm a Black Latina. I've been a member of the
And
Black
she's a
Caucus
member
for
of the
9
Women's
years.
Caucus.
9 years I've been a member, a very active member of the Black Caucus.
And you're a member of the Women's Caucus
Yes.
also. But tell us about your work to advance Latinos to elected office.
You know, I think it's important that we have representation in the General Assembly. We only have 6 Latinos out of 188, when the population is more than that. So I have helped mentor different people, help them financially, help them organize their campaign as well. Because there are a lot of issues that affect us, not just Latino, but for example, the Black community. I'm the chair of the Public Health Committee and Minority Disparity Committee for the House, for the Health Committee, and the issues, for example, regarding health, disparity and poverty. Those are issues that affect our communities, and it is imperative that we be present in the room so that people can hear us.
I also was told this morning that, correct me if I'm wrong, that the electorate, the people who will vote, the Latino vote is only a few percentage points in the entire district. It's only like 2 or 3%.
That is right. And I am not counting on that, percentage to win. Obviously, as a, Black Latina, as a woman, I'm counting on more than that. When I first ran 9 years ago, I did not win with a Latino vote. I won with the white vote and the Black vote, and they voted for me because of my record and where I stand. And I'm counting on doing that again.
We got a tweet from Linus who said, could you ask her about illegal immigration or Prince George's County as a sanctuary city? I guess it would be a sanctuary county.
I think that I believe in having immigration reform. I think it is important at the federal level to be able to have that. I think that I don't know what specifically, the person is asking regarding immigration. But I believe in having immigration reform, especially at the state level, at the federal level.
And when you say you believe in immigration reform at the federal level, specifically, what do you support?
I support a path for citizenship, okay, for the 11 million people that are in this country, because I feel that they're here already. They're working here. Their kids are going to school. They're driving on our roads, and they want to be productive member of this society. As an immigrant, my family came here because they wanted to, have a better life. My mom was a single parent, make a good living. I am where I am today because of this beautiful country. And those 11 million people want the same thing. So why not give them a path to citizenship where they can earn it and they can work for it and they can contribute to this society?
How about Prince George's as a sanctuary county? Would you approve of that?
I don't see, I don't know what he's referring to. I don't see Prince George's as a sanctuary, county. People live there.
That's for sure.
It's not, definitely not,
Do you support the idea that the local officials in the county don't do anything to help to assist the immigration officials to trying to ferret out people who are here illegally?
No, I would disagree. I don't think that that's a problem.
You think they should help or not help?
I don't think it depends. It depends on the issue. Okay. If it has to be, for example, if there's a traffic stop, should it be, mandatory when it's a traffic stop? Isn't it better to basically go after people that are real criminals and there's a warrant out for their arrest that you turn them in? It depends on the issue. I think that's a very broad question. So you don't believe local police should
be involved in immigration enforcement, is what you're saying?
That is up to the federal government.
Well, the federal government wants them to be involved.
Are they actually?
A member of Congress this week suggested cutting off federal funds to local jurisdictions that do not help on the immigration issue.
No, I think it's really up to the government, and especially if you want them to be involved, it's an unfunded mandate. A lot of the local jurisdictions are not ready to take that on, and they don't have the funding, and they're struggling as it is.
This summer, the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, but LGBT individuals say there's still a ways to go. Can you talk about your own political history involving gay rights and where you're looking to go from here?
Thank you. I was a co-sponsor of the marriage bill. Actually, I helped tremendously in seeking the votes regarding the transgender community, I was the sponsor of the bill that said that when transgender people look for housing, employment, and apply for credit, that, you know, they should not be discriminated upon because they're transgender. It was a fight on the House floor. I defended the bill last year for 4 hours and 52 minutes, and it passed both the House and the Senate, and Governor O'Malley signed it into law. I have been representing people that usually don't have a voice. That is what motivates me to run. Even when people say, oh, you're not well known, how are you going to do it? Well, I'm going to do it because I'm a hard worker. I'm not shy, and I have a solid record. And I really, since I was very little, I remember being when my mom would go to the welfare office and she would make me translate for everyone that was waiting there as a small child. I have always done that. It was instilled in me, and I am the voice for those that cannot speak or represent themselves well.
You say your mother, how old are your twins?
15.
They're 15.
Okay. What did you, I think you opposed the University of Maryland selling alcohol at its sporting events. Why did you do that? That seems like a popular thing that students would not like.
Oh, well, you know, I did it because, first of all, we have had have been a delegate for 9. I was a councilwoman for 3 years. While I was on the council back in 2003, alcohol was a big problem. And, you know, the University of Maryland has been voted many times for being a party school. That is not the reputation that we want to have at our flagship. Absolutely not, especially when we're looking to renovate that area, when the university just became part of the Big Ten. I know it's all about the money, but you're talking about students and the culture, and that is not something that you should be instilling in them at all.
Allow me to go to an international issue here from Rachel in Rockville, Maryland. Rachel, you're on the air. We don't have much time left, so please make your comment or question brief.
Sure, thank you. I'd like to ask the delegate, what are your thoughts about potentially supporting a U.S. rep sanction against U.S. House Representative, sanction against the Dominican Republic for the human rights violations that are now being committed against the Dominicans who have Haitian ancestry?
A thorny question.
Actually, you know, that's a very complicated question because of the history between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. But I can tell you that I issue, if you go to Facebook, I did issue a statement urging the Dominican Republic to solve the problem, to give respect to the Haitian community, and to protect their civil rights.
Okay, thank you very much for your call. Rachel?
I have a quick question. You're running for the seat now occupied by Donna Edwards. Has she shown any interest in endorsing someone to succeed her?
No, she's very focused on,
right. She's running for
her,
the Senate.
That's right.
Her principal opponent is Chris Van Hollen, another congressman giving up his seat. Do you have a preference in that campaign?
You know, I'm focused on my campaign right now. All I can tell you is that if a woman does not win, you know, any of these races, we might potentially have an all-male delegation. And that's a problem when women are the majority of the voters in a state so progressive as Maryland.
Jocelyn Pena-Melnick, she is a Democratic Maryland state delegate representing District 21. She's now a candidate for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. Thank you for joining us, and good luck to you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend.
Do you have a big cake for later?
We have a big cake for later and for tomorrow.
Because the 15-year-olds are like, she went away from home today to do an interview about what she's running for. She better have cake when she comes back. Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's a reporter at NBC4 and a columnist for the Current newspaper. Did you have cake this week? Thank you all for listening. No. I'm Kojo Nandi. Coming up Monday on the Kojo Nandi Show, teen jobs, what a tough economy and a dearth of entry-level opportunities means for young people. Then at 1, Maryland's governor